How can sergeants handle the "I've been here for 20 years and you can't make me do shit" officers who suck the morale off the shift and leave a long-term impact on newer officers? For example, at my old department, they would assign newer officers to each shift to spread out the experiences. This put new officers who would have been good cops on days where they would have been bullied into not being proactive and taught how to avoid work. Now those officers are worthless and bitter with 3 or 4 years on and 25 to go.
So again, I go back to what I was saying before about this is where the frontline supervisors are so important, and round pegs for round holes. Now, I coined something I call the garbage man theory, and some people get upset when I say this, but I don't mean it literally. I come from a blue collar family. I mean, my father was a bus driver in New York City. It's not like I think that there's anything wrong with that profession. But my point is this: the world needs them, right? So again, it's shifting your focus and your time and energy and your innovation onto those that matter. So what I've done through my experience with those types of officers, never treat them poorly. You always want to treat your people like they're good people. And again, empathy is always the cornerstone of what we do. But they would be my radio guys, right? Those would be the ones that, hey, you're going to answer and you're going to respond to the less salacious type things that these other officers, those younger ones especially, want to go out and do. And what does it do? It frees up their time for them to flourish. It doesn't matter if they want to be interdiction, traffic, street crime type thing, quality of life issues, but it frees them up of those mundane tasks that those guys could then go and handle. I always say this: I don't believe in forcing, but my thing is, if you're going to win on some days, and this is where humility comes into place. So some days they might be able to sit under a tree and read a newspaper. That's the course that they've chosen. But more days than not, you're going to win, where those guys are going to be handling the neighbor disputes, the alarms, the BS domestics, while your proactive officers are getting out there doing what they want to do and actually doing the police type of policing we believe in. So I always say that if the younger officers see your attention being, the constant tug of war, those guys will inevitably win by you becoming frustrated. And then what? You have no time and energy left for those young proactive officers.
I'll give you my take on it. I'm going to read the question again. It says, how can sergeants handle the "I've been here for 20 years and you can't make me do shit" officers who suck the morale out of the shift and leave long-term impact for newer officers?
Yeah.
Here's a story. My last agency, the captain came down and said we had hired 26 new people for a 200-man police department in 1 year. So you had literally almost one-third of the patrol division was brand new. Brand new. And that came with a lot of. You look back on it now, and of course, there was a lot of problems. You have literally people who have no idea what they're doing running the police department per se, right? And that challenge could be handled a little bit better. Am I saying I'm not sitting here pointing fingers of what could have been done? But here's the reality: Captain comes down to muster one day, and she goes, "Chief is not happy with all the new people and the performance that they're giving." And I thought to myself, well, a couple of us who worked at other police departments before this are able to perform a little bit better. And these people just needed some time. And I raised my hand audaciously like I did. And she said yes. And I said, well, look who your field training officers are. What do you think you're creating here?
I did not.
This dude goes and reads the paper for 2 hours a morning while this guy sits here hoping to do something. At a very minimum, teach him how to run radar, right? You want to do
something.
Like, let him run plates while he reads the paper. Maybe you'll get a stolen car,
Sure.
right? Maybe you'll get a real hot...
Something.
Yeah, anything. Then you got this guy. He's the next guy. He's been patrol for 38 years. He hates this place. He tells him as soon as he walks in, go be a fireman. What are you doing here? And how bad all of you are to him. But you make him a field training. And the only reason they're FTOs and the reason they get violent when you don't let them field train is because they're entitled to an hour and a half of comp time every day. And they'll use that to go fishing in the summer. And that's a horrible incentive. And her proposal was, what do you suggest that we do? I go, you have people here with 3 years on the job, right? You have people here with 2.5 that are more than qualified to show these people how to do the job than these guys here because they don't know what they're doing. I mean, you got guys 22 years on the job, you're asking new guys how to do jobs.
Right.
Those are your field training officers? I mean, good guys, but they don't even know what they're doing. So what do you think you're getting as a product when you cycle them through the training? And I got to tell you, beyond police work in my business career, one thing that I've recognized is that training is paramount. I mean, it just is. I have seen people literally get hired and just left, and you can't blame them for that.
Nope.
If we're dealing with somebody at this company, we have a lot of full-time employees at this junction of this of our path. if somebody's having a difficult time, I try to sit with them and work, like, what aren't you getting? What do you need me to do? How am I failing you? Because the job's not getting done correctly, there's got to be something I'm not telling you. If I go through all that and I do everything I can and they're still not getting it, what's a different story? I don't have to abide by civil service guidelines here. You know what I mean? So, to me, it comes back all the way back to the top line administration accepting responsibility for what they're creating.
Sure.
And if that's the mentality at the top, guess what the mentality at the bottom's going to be?
Oh, magnified.
Yeah, I mean, and you're just going to get a few guys that just don't fit in. And if you're feeling like you're at a place where you don't fit in and you have options, find a place where you do. You know what I mean? If they're going to, I always tell people, if they leave you alone and let you work and don't break your chops, you're in a good spot.
Good place.
They got your back when somebody comes in and files these fraudulent complaints against police and they have your interest at stake. They're not going to serve you up. They're going to give you a fair shot at being called to the table to explain your actions. They're going to understand that mistakes occur. You're not going to lose your livelihood because you didn't know this, because they didn't teach it to you. That's okay. You can get by there.
Right.
But if you're at a place where it's, you feel this in your body that you need to be a better cop, this is how you envision your law enforcement career, well, what can I tell you to do? It's your life. You owe nothing to anybody. And even if you got to take a little bit of a pay cut, I'd rather be happy going to work every single day. It's just worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
But how about helping each other out, too? If you see somebody struggling, it's just because they're missing just a couple pieces of information or a couple tips and tricks. How about offering it to them and helping them out?
And I think this is the sergeant asking this question about how do I address these guys? Look, I get it. I could see what it's like. But again, you said I'll take this spot, put those things on my collar, put them on my shoulders, and I can handle this. You have to figure it out. It's a communication issue. So you have to figure it out. And like Tom said before, it goes back to the original conversation. Find what they're good at.
Right.
You're not going to win by fighting.
But unfortunately, traditional training mechanisms, and I'm not, throwing shade on any other, training company or any other way to train, but traditional training with this always goes right down the discipline route. And again, let's just talk reality. You're not going to win. These guys have been around. They're survivors. They're going to find a way to manipulate the system to just keep their heads enough above water that it's going to preclude you from doing anything really permanent to them. So I always recommend, why not just making it effective? Define effective. So for me, effective would be, I don't want somebody like that going out and making bad case law. I just don't want it. But I'm going to get my widgets made by them, while the other people who actually internalize the job make something of it. But I always leave my door open. Anytime somebody wants a clean slate and wants to jump on the right ship, let's do it. I don't ever hold a grudge.
I sit here as we record this podcast and say in my head, how many people are listening to this and it is everything that they are, and they're being exposed and they're being self-exposed and they're recognizing this, and you have a decision to make. You can either listen to this and make a change, because we're giving you the right answers. There is the other answer is because other people agree or say, "Oh, that's the problem in law enforcement. They're the problem." So you can either hear this and say, "You know what? They're right. I can do this better," or you can say, "F this. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I get a paycheck every 2 weeks."
Right.
And then when you sit there and you complain that all the stuff you see on the news is against police, don't forget your ass is part of the problem.
No doubt.
You are part of the problem personally. So take responsibility. We can implement change if you choose to. And that's where you don't have to act cool in front of your friends. Well, this is the way it's always been here. Enough with that line, for the love of... If there's anything worse in the world to hear, I mean, Sloan Kettering, it's written on the walls. The most dangerous phrase in the world is, this is the way we've always done things here. We have to be innovative and growing and constantly changing. And part of that comes with the way you have to navigate. This is a business. The best business leaders are the best communicators.
That's a fact.
They're selfless. We do things here. We try to build leadership here and build people who are self-sufficient and can do their own thing and feel accomplished. This is principles. You don't got to find a police book to get this. You can go on YouTube and watch videos on leadership. You can improve. I often think if and when I would have been promoted, had I not had the outside education that I've received, that I've sought out myself, how I would have behaved.
You'd be stifled. It's not that you'd be bad at it, but I always say, if you want to blow your mind and expand your capabilities far beyond what we learned traditionally with law enforcement, you have to be able to open up your perspectives to non-law enforcement mechanisms. I mean, there's just so much to learn from some of these great business minds.